Well, this is the all-new Hyundai Verna, and in fact it looks very similar to the bigger and much more expensive Elantra, and it also has a lot of the same features. So essentially what you need to do is watch my Hyundai Elantra video on a slightly smaller window here on YouTube, and you'll know exactly what this car is all about. I'm not going to waste your time again by giving you a full review of this car. So it's bye for now and see you soon. Well, I was just messing around with you guys. Of course, I am going to give you the full review of this car and start that review by talking about the interior. So let's get started. Well, if you are watching my video for the first time ever, let me just tell you that my height for reference is 5'10", and I always adjust the front seat for my height and my driving position. And if I decide to sit up straight over here in the Verna's back seat, then there's about an inch or maybe an inch and a half between my head and the roof. So if you are someone who's about 6 feet in height or taller, then your head might just brush around the roof if you sit up straight like this. If you of course sit in a relaxed position like this, then it is quite a decent place to be in. Knee room also is pretty okay. There's a little bit of place below the front seats to stretch your feet. But that said, it's not in the same league as the Honda City or even the Maruti Suzuki Ciaz when it comes to sheer legroom at the back. In isolation, it's okay. This is more than adequate legroom that you need at the back. But yes, of course, those two cars offer you a little more place to stretch your feet. So those two cars are definitely ahead in the backseat department. One area where this car is pretty good is in the fact that the floor panel is really flat. So whoever's sitting here in the middle has plenty of place to stretch his feet, and also gets a very good view of that very European and very upmarket looking dashboard up ahead. Well, the back seat of the Verna might not be as impressive as the Honda City or even the Maruti Suzuki Ciaz, but it is the front seats which really are the business end. And why is that? Well, simply because this dashboard really does look very upmarket and very European. In terms of quality, it is better than both its main rivals, the Ciaz as well as the City. And it is also very well bolted together. Even the lower end of the dashboard, a place where a lot of people don't pay attention to, is very well bolted. So if you do tend to drop your keys or your cell phone ever inside the car and do brush around your hand over here, you will notice that it is a very nicely put together place. Well, not only is it better in terms of quality, it's also better in terms of the overall features list, and you get automatic headlamps which also have projector lamps in them. In the top end version, you get this sunroof. You also get a very good feature for India, and that of course is the cooled front seats. And these front seats should really simmer down the temperatures in this car when you are of course in a heated argument with your wife, and you can always tell her to chill on those cold seats. Well, but that's not all. You also get this nice touchscreen system over here, which is definitely better than both its other rivals, not because it gets Apple CarPlay as well as Android Auto, but because it's much more easier to use, and it's also better than its rivals in terms of legibility. So even when it is of course very bright on the outside, it's a very easy system to read, and that means that it is a nicer system than its other rivals. You also get a cool glove box, which means that on those long highway trips, you won't have to stop at your local dhabas to get that cold Diet Coke can from. You can always have a small chill over here. And in terms of practicality, it's a nice place as well, because you get this huge tray over here where you can keep your cell phone, wallet and other paraphernalia, 2 bottle holders over here, and also a big box where you can keep your wallet and a couple of Coke cans or that Bar One chocolate. And the door bins are also large enough to house those big bottles from your home. Well, the Verna also comes with a very intelligent boot lid opening. It's an automatic boot, so if you have the car keys in your pocket and stand about 3 feet away from the car and wait for about 3 seconds, the boot lid will open automatically. So it's a great feature if you have your hands full. Well, the boot on the Verna is very comparable to both the Honda City as well as the Ciaz when it comes to its shape and size, and it also is very comparable when it comes to this loading lip. All these cars are very similar, and in terms of overall capacity, all these cars have a tie. So no one wins the battle of the boot, and the Verna is comparable to both its rivals. Well, so the Hyundai Verna comes with 2 engine options, and they're both 1.6 litre options. Both the petrol as well as the diesel are 1.6 liter engines, and both of them are the most powerful engines in this segment. The petrol makes about 123 bhp of power, while the diesel makes about 128 bhp of power, which makes both of them, as I said, the most powerful engines in this segment. Well, so the diesel engine car does of course suffer from a little bit of turbo lag below 2000 rpm, but that's quite okay because all other cars in this segment do suffer from that kind of a problem. But once of course you move this car above 2000 rpm, all the way up to its red line to about 4500 rpm, there's plenty of torque available, and this car is a very good highway cruiser. You can simply be sitting in these seats, these cool seats I might add, and be spending at least 6 or 7 hours without having to get out of the car, because it's a very relaxing car to drive. The engine is huge in terms of refinement. It's also pretty good in terms of responsiveness in the mid-range, and because you get this 6th extra gear, yes, the Hyundai Verna comes with a 6-speed manual as well as 6-speed automatic gearbox. Because you get that extra 6th gear, the cars and the engine's flexibility is also very good, which means that when you're doing speeds say of about 100 kph on the highway, the engine is spinning at a very relaxing 1300-1400 rpm, which means the cabin is a nice and calm place to be in. In fact, if you have any friends or your family members sitting in the back seat, the diesel engine is so refined that they won't be able to tell if it's a diesel or a petrol powering this car. Yes, refinement levels are so good, and the petrol also is very fine. Now, the petrol engine is pretty good in terms of responsiveness. It isn't as responsive as the Honda City's engine in the lower end of its power band, which means that the Honda City still has a slight edge in terms of overall drivability towards the lower end, which means it's a better car to drive in the city. But in the mid-range and the top end, the Verna's petrol engine is phenomenal. Now, the gearbox and the clutch on both the diesel and the petrol is very light to operate on both these versions, and the gearbox really is very crisp. The clutch is very light, and the very sharp and responsive steering makes it a very nice and positive car. But Hyundai engineers have done a very good job in terms of the suspension setup on the new Verna, and when you're on the highway, this car feels a lot more stable than your last girlfriend, and it feels a lot more stable than the older Hyundai Verna as well, and it has a sense of reassurance that you will not associate with the earlier Verna, so that's something which is very nice. And it is at par with the VW Vento as well as the Skoda Rapid when it comes to overall highway stability. So that goes to show the amount of engineering depth that Hyundai has put into the new Verna. Well, the handling of this car now is just as crisp as the language that your wife uses every time you spend a lot of money shopping at the mall for car magazines. And I say that in a good way, because this car really does have a very crisp steering wheel now. Now, it's not heavier, it's not a very heavy steering wheel, unlike some of its rivals. But even though it is a light steering wheel, it has very good feedback. It's well weighed now, and it feels a lot more dynamic than the earlier car. In fact, I would stretch out my neck and say that in its diesel version, the Hyundai Verna is the best driver's car in this segment. Well, what also adds to the easy nature of the car, of course, is the excellent visibility you get all across. And you get a very slender A-pillar here. You can easily look around it. You get a good view from the back window, and you also get a nice view from the side windows, and the rear view mirror also is pretty big and chunky, so you get a nice view of whatever's happening behind you. There are no blind spots, so this car is pretty good and pretty easy to drive when you're on the highway, or even if you're driving in the city. So if you are planning to buy the Verna, which one should you go for? Should you choose the petrol or the diesel? Well, if I were you, I would definitely go for the diesel, because not only does it have very good fuel efficiency, it's also the best diesel engine in this segment when it comes to sheer refinement as well as sheer performance. While Hyundai engineers have claimed very good figures for fuel efficiency for both the diesel and the petrol, and going by our previous experiences with Hyundai cars, we believe those figures. This car should be a very solid mix of performance and fuel efficiency as well as refinement. That's the diesel that I'm talking about. And even the petrol offers you very respectable figures, and it does offer you something for performance seekers as well. Well, no matter which engine you choose, the suspension setup, the crisp steering wheel, the very agile chassis, and the refinement from these engines will clearly make this car a very good driver's car, and definitely is a car which will manage to put a smile on your face. All that, along with this long features list, make this a very, very powerful package. With its desirable looks on the outside, its very classy cabin on the inside, and a punchy set of diesel and petrol engines, along With a long list of features, the Verna really does present a very strong case for itself. But to be honest, don't think of it as a rival to the Honda City and the Maruti CS, but think of it as a more affordable version of the Elantra, and you'll know what phenomenal value this car really is. It's bye for now and hope to see you soon.